Hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. My name is Kelly and I'm a former wedding planner and blogger, and I'm obsessed with weddings. If you're planning a wedding in Ireland, you're in the right place. You're going to learn the tried and tested methods to planning your dream wedding without the added stress. Think of this as your one-stop shop for everything to do with planning your wedding in Ireland, with me, your new wedding planning bestie, and a cup of tea. This is Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Timing, as they say, is everything, and that statement is especially true when it comes to weddings. In fact, most of the wedding planning mistakes that I see have to do with timing. So if you want to make sure that you don't make these wedding timing mistakes, carry on listening to this episode, because you're going to learn some very important things about 6 wedding timing mistakes that couples make and how to avoid them. And I'm going to share a bonus mistake at the end too. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kelly and I'm the host of the Wedding Wednesdays podcast. And let's get stuck in with mistake number 1, which is booking your suppliers too soon. Now, you probably didn't anticipate this one, and it probably wasn't on your wedding timing mistakes bingo card, but if you book your suppliers too soon, there are some instances where it has a knock-on effect on the rest of your wedding plans and things can start to derail a little bit. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of two instances where booking your suppliers too early is not a good thing. First one, if you choose your suppliers before you've had a think about your wedding style and the kind of wedding that you want to have, what can tend to happen is you can book someone because you really, really like them, and then you realize that you have a particular style in mind and it's hard to piece everything together. So, for example, let's say you've chosen, you've picked your florist and you've said, I'm choosing you because of this style. Let's say you've chosen somebody who's really good at like boho flower arrangements, and they're great with things like wildflowers and things looking really organic and a little bit raw. Then you end up choosing your dream wedding venue, and perhaps the aesthetic of that venue is a little bit more elegant, sophisticated, and kind of put together. And you might start to piece all the details together and you're not sure where to go. When it comes to choosing the colors of the day, are you going to lean into the elegance, the put together classic look that your venue has? Or are you going to lean towards that wildflower, organic, raw kind of aesthetic that your flowers have? It could even be things like, you select your wedding dress and you've gone for a really lovely ball gown, and then what ends up happening is you decide you're actually going to get married in the heat of summer and you're going to have a beach ceremony, and then a ball gown and a beach, they just don't always go together very well. So that is actually my second example, is if you choose your dress too early, it does have a knock-on effect when it comes to your wedding style, as I've mentioned, but also if you have a long engagement and you choose your dress at the start of the engagement, so many things happen. For example, your dress might be out of style by the time your wedding day comes. It might not fit you properly if you change shape in any way, if you've been working out, or, life happens. And there's so many reasons that having a wedding dress way too soon might not be a good idea. So that is item number 1. A wedding timing mistake is sometimes booking your suppliers too soon is not helpful. If you want to know a little bit more about some of the steps that you can take to really define your wedding style, to understand the kind of theme you want to have, to think about the questions that you should ask yourselves when you start to plan your wedding, I'm going to direct you to episode number 33 of the podcast, where we speak all about the beginning stages of getting engaged, what you should consider when you start planning your wedding to help you build those foundations to then start booking the right suppliers, picking your supplier team that actually knows how to piece together everything that's going to create your dream wedding with the particular theme and style that you have in mind. Let's move on to the second wedding timing mistake. And now this one might also come as a shock because we've just said booking suppliers too soon. But the second item is waiting too long to book your suppliers. And now I'm probably making you turn your head to the left and then to the right, and then you don't know where you're coming or going. But too soon is a problem, as I've explained. But if you wait too long, it might mean that you can lose out on booking your dream suppliers who are going to make your wedding day the best day it can possibly be. So don't procrastinate, but when the time is right, get booking. If you look at a live band, You know that they are in your budget, they're available on your wedding day, they meet the style that you're going for, they've got a particular genre of music that you think your guests are really going to love, then book them. Don't wait too long. If you buy your wedding dress, you know it's the right dress, it's something you can afford, it's the right style, it fits you well, you feel good in it. Don't go back and try on more wedding dresses. So some of these things, people just need to get into their minds that there's no use procrastinating. There's no use second guessing. If you are getting married in the peak times, so peak times are things like summer wedding days. It's things like bank holidays, weekend dates, those popular times that loads of couples want to get married in. There's a reason that they're popular, but it does mean that sometimes the suppliers that you want to book are going to get really booked up really quickly. So don't procrastinate. So as you can tell with these first two elements, these first two wedding timing mistakes, it's a special, there's a special talent when it comes to choosing which suppliers to book when, but don't worry because here at the Weddings Online podcast, we walk you through all of these things. So carry on listening because I'm going to share a couple of episode titles that you can listen to that will help you to know how to time everything really, really well so that you don't make the same mistakes that the typical average couple makes because you're not an average couple. Wedding timing mistake number 3, sending your save the dates before you find your wedding venue. Now, this is a little bit of a chicken or egg situation. You could create your guest list and invite your friends and family before selecting your venue, but then choose a wedding venue that doesn't actually accommodate everybody. Or you could choose a wedding venue and then book them and realize that you actually have more people that you want to invite, but they won't fit. So there isn't a precise way of going about doing it, but it does come down to your priorities. So here are a couple of things that you could do. Option 1, you find your dream wedding venue and you know that it's the right one. You know that it fits into your budget, it's available on the day you want to get married, it's got the perfect look, it's got everything you could dream of. Maybe you've met the coordinator and you just know that this is somebody who's going to bring your wedding dreams to life. And then what you do is you find out what their capacity is. And a lot of venues have different types of capacity depending on the table layout and several other factors. You find out what the different options are, and then you create your guest list based on what the venue can accommodate. The other option is you create a bit of a rough guest list. So this could be your absolute must-have guests, where if you can't invite these people, it's like, it's not even worth having this wedding, that kind of thing. It's like, these are the people you really, really want to have. And then you could add your next tier of guests that you would like to invite, but it just gives you a rough idea of kind of how many people you are thinking of inviting. And then when you look for a wedding venue, you're specifically looking for a venue that ticks a few boxes, one of which is how many people they can accommodate. So I said it's a chicken or egg situation because it really depends on your priority. Is your priority the venue itself, or is it the people that you're inviting? And I don't say that in a judgmental kind of way because the priorities are different for different people. Some people have a dream venue that they must have. Other people are more relaxed about that, but they know they want to invite certain people. So choose which option works best for you. And it definitely helps to be a little bit of a step ahead. So having an idea of the kind of venue you want, having an idea of roughly how many guests you want to invite, and then being a little bit flexible on both sides will help you to pick a great venue. But the reason that it's important from a timing perspective is if you send your save the dates and then you find your venue, realizing that your venue can't accommodate the people who have just saved the date, you're going to be in a pickle. So whichever way you do things, you want to make sure that you first book your venue and then you send your save the dates, because you want people to save the date knowing you can actually host them at your wedding and you don't have to uninvite people, because that's really awkward and not recommended at all. Wedding timing mistake number 4, waiting till the last minute to book a videographer. Now, so many couples think that having a wedding video is a luxury that they just can't afford. But you know what? The worst case scenario is you wait too long and then you can't find a videographer who's available, who's in your budget, and then you just don't have anyone to capture that side of the day. This is actually one of the most common wedding planning regrets. So when we talk to couples and we ask them if there's anything they regret from their big day, so many couples report back and say that they wish they had hired a wedding videographer. And you know what? I had a wedding videographer. I thought it was a luxury. I didn't think I could afford it, and I waited till the last minute, and thankfully it didn't come back to bite me in the butt, because I did find somebody who was in my budget and made an amazing wedding video for me. And what ended up happening was my husband and I can now look back on that video and relive those memories. And I've said this a few times on the podcast before, but there are actually a few memories that I legitimately don't remember happening, but I can see them in the video and I know they happened. And so there's something really special about being able to look back on the video and say, oh my gosh, that's what happened at our wedding. How cool. And so you don't have to be a party animal to have those moments. Sometimes it's just the day goes so quickly that you just lose track of what's happened. There's one memory in particular where we've just been pronounced married and we're about to walk back out of the church. And just before that moment, my dad, who's standing at the front row at that time, he leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. And in the moment, I didn't take note of it, but in the video, I can see myself like acknowledge it. And then, we walked out of the church. And it was such a special moment that if I had forgotten it and I wasn't able to relive that, I think I'd be really disappointed. So if you want to book a videographer, which I highly recommend you do, don't wait till the last minute, because you might not find somebody who's available or in your budget or able to accommodate you. So don't put it off. Do your research and find somebody who's going to really help you to celebrate your wedding day, even after the day has happened, where you can relive those memories over and over and over again. Okay, item number 5, another wedding timing mistake is mistiming your wedding invitations and save the dates. So I know we've spoken a little bit about save the dates already, but there is a little bit of an art to how you send your save the dates and how you time things, so you're giving your guests the right amount of time to receive an invitation and then tell you they're coming, but also the right amount of times for you to gather all that information and then get it to those who need the information. So for example, there are a few people who need to know how many guests you're having. Could be your wedding venue, because they're the ones who are going to set up the tables. If you're paying per head, that is particularly important so that they can give you an invoice that's most up to date. If you're doing anything else per head, like a certain amount of wedding favors, or, if you're having table names or specific guests' names on the tables, anything like that, where you need to know exactly who is coming and how many people, you need to make sure you've got enough time for everything, but you also can't be unrealistic in how much time you're expecting to have. So let me walk you through what I recommend doing. And before I get started, this is for your typical wedding that's happening in your local area where most of your guests live nearby. So if you're having a destination wedding where you or most of your guests will be traveling, the timeline will be slightly different, because you need to account for the fact that people have to book accommodation, they've got to book flights, lots of people will have to take time off work, you may have to do all of the above. So for your average wedding, where you're not driving for more than an hour to get there, this is the kind of timeline that we're thinking. You want to send your invitations 6 weeks before the big day. You then ask your guests to RSVP 2 weeks before the wedding. So this gives everyone else 4 weeks to get the invitation and to respond. It gives you 2 weeks to follow up with anyone who hasn't yet RSVP'd, to gather all the guest information, and then to send that to those who need it. So I'll give you a couple of date examples so that you can kind of think it through and you can do the maths. Just a side note that all the wedding podcast episodes also have a written episode breakdown on weddingsonline.ie/blog. And so if you want to have a look at this calculation and a bit of a formula, you can find the written episode guideline to go with this live on the blog right now. So let's have a look at this. Let's say you're getting married on the 16th of September. The date that you may need to give your final head count is the 9th of September, but you want to have that buffer in, so you're going to put the RSVP date as the 1st of September. So what you're doing is you're basically saying to your guests, RSVP so that I have 2 weeks to get the information to my venue, even though they actually only need it 1 week before. So then when would you send the invitations? You would send the invitations on the 5th of August. So your guests get 4 weeks to receive the invitation send in their RSVPs, and then you've got time to chase people because you will probably need to chase them, and then give your final head count. Okay, let's move on to item number 6. When it comes to wedding timing mistakes, so many couples focus too much on the small details when that's not what's needed. There will be a time and a place to think about the smaller things, like the color of the napkins and, all the little details coming together. And sometimes those are fun things and sometimes they're stressful. But when it comes to timing, it's important to know which suppliers to book first, which decisions to make first, and doing it in the right order will help you to stay sane because you'll be making the most important decisions and then filling in the gaps as you go. So I made a whole episode all about which suppliers to book first so that you can focus on the key suppliers first. And that is episode number 30. And that's really going to help you to build the foundations of which suppliers need to be booked. And then you can fill in the gaps as you begin to plan the details of the day. So it's a wedding timing mistake because you can tend to get stressed about things that are less important or things that your guests are less likely to take notice in. And so take advice from our newlyweds. Every time we do a real wedding feature on our blog, which is every week, we ask the couples for their best wedding planning advice. And so many of them give the same advice, which is don't sweat the small things. The day goes by so quickly, don't get wrapped up in all the details. And sometimes couples get engaged and already get wrapped up in all the details and start to feel overwhelmed. And if that's you, just take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And don't worry about those small things. Focus on the key decisions, know which suppliers you need to book first, and the rest will follow. And a bonus, another wedding timing mistake, is sometimes timing the festivities of the day in a way that makes it kind of awkward. And if you want to know what I mean, and if you want to know how to avoid having long, awkward gaps in your wedding timeline, then I want to direct you to episode number 11, where I walked you through probably one of the most awkward experiences I've ever had at a wedding, and how you can make sure that your guests don't have the same experience that I did. Well, thank you for listening today. The Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast is produced by me, Kelly, and mixed, mastered, and edited by Glenn Hartman. For more wedding planning tips, advice, checklists, and more, visit weddingsonline.ie.